she has got the text, she can start.
Yes, Ramgada.
Yeah, but what has fixed the modes of nature? Page 214.
But what has fixed the modes of nature? That one, no, Rangada?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Shall I read?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
But what has fixed the modes of nature, or who has originated and governs the movements of force? There is a consciousness or a conscient behind that is the Lord, witness, knower, enjoyer, upholder, and source of sanction for our works. This consciousness is soul or Purusha. Prakriti shapes the action in us. Purusha in her or behind her witnesses essence, bears and upholds it. Prakriti forms the thought in our minds. Purusha in her or behind her knows the thought and the truth in it. Prakriti determines the result of the action. Purusha in her or behind her enjoys or suffers the consequence. Prakriti forms mind and body, labors over them, develops them. Purusha upholds the formation and evolution and sanctions each step of her works. Prakriti applies the will force which works in things and men. Purusha sets that will force to work by his vision of that which should be done. This Purusha is not the surface ego, but a silent self, a source of power, an originator and receiver of knowledge behind the ego. Our mental eye is only a false reflection of this self, this power, this knowledge. This Purusha or supporting consciousness is therefore the cause, recipient, and support of all nature's works, but he is not himself the doer. Prakriti, nature force, in front, and Shakti, conscious force, soul force behind her, for these two are the inner and outer faces of the universal mother, account for all that is done in the universe. The universal mother, Prakriti Shakti, is the one and only worker.
Yeah. So this is he is describing here the Purusha Prakriti relationship. Okay. Remember also, Purusha is consciousness, and consciousness is at various levels. Okay, and all are consciousness. So at the highest level, it is full of the awareness, consciousness. And but consciousness decides that I want to manifest and keeps coming down into the physical world, and that is it goes on reducing its own consciousness until finally it becomes the inconscient. So don't think that the inconscient is the opposite. The inconscient is the consciousness which has reduced itself and is hiding in the force. Consciousness and Shakti. Okay, consciousness and force. Chit and Shakti. These two are playing with themselves all the time. Their relations are inversely proportional to each other. In matter, the consciousness is hiding in its own force. Okay, it's hiding in the force, the energy. And as it keeps coming, consciousness is divine and essentially it is divine. So therefore it starts evolving. It cannot remain suppressed forever. It goes on coming out. But force also is its own, and force also has got its own force. So there's a big struggle in the beginning. And finally, after millions of years, the consciousness comes out of the force and life comes into picture. And then again, the same struggle happens, and then consciousness goes one more step, it comes into the mind. So all this is consciousness. Purusha at the highest level, Purusha in supermind, Purusha in the overmind, Purusha in the all the spiritual planes of consciousness, finally Purusha in the mind, Purusha in the vital, and Purusha even in the body. Okay. So in the body, the Purusha is almost unconscious. But it's all Purusha, taking different stands. And same thing happens also with the force. Force also is there, and these two are playing with each other all the time. Okay, so this is the description that he's giving. Purusha is okay, so now we read what he's saying. So in the previous paragraph, what he has said, okay, he has spoken about the superficial nature. We are in the chapter, the supreme will, right? The supreme will. So, because in the earlier, he said that we have to surrender to the supreme. And now he is describing what the supreme will is. Okay, so. And in the previous para, I'll quickly read the summary of what he said in the previous para so that we get the sense of continuity. This is only once a week, so we are likely to forget what we have read. Okay, so now he's talking about the ego. Ego is a device of nature to centralize you and make you conscious of yourself. But it is like the body, mind, and life, it's a construction of nature. And all constructions are liable for destruction. So the body, the vital, and the mind are all constructions, and at the end of life, they disappear. They die out and go back to where they came from. And ego also is exactly the same thing. But ego doesn't go anywhere. Okay? It just dissolves. So I'm reading the previous paragraph's summary. This ego or I is only a superficial creation of nature without any essential reality and is subject to disappearance when the true individuality realized, which is self or psychic being. This ego is useful, almost necessary for self-development and centralization of the various parts of the outer being, body, mind, life. It is dissolved and discarded when no longer needed, just like a scaffolding. You need a scaffolding to build the building, to make the building, but as soon as it's built, you don't need the scaffolding anymore. So it's exactly in the same way the ego also is a help in developing yourself. The ego correlates and coordinates the diverse parts of the outer nature. The outer nature is your body, vital, and mind, and it's ego that coordinates all their actions. Okay, not very effectively, because very often our mind is quarreling with our vital, and both are also quarreling with the body. Okay, we don't think of it in that sense, but it's always like that. So, as I tell the students, you have had a very heavy game of football and you come home and now you remember that you have to do a homework for next day, but the body is saying, no, I'm too tired. So you go to sleep instead of doing the homework. The homework, the mind is telling you do the homework, the body is telling you I want to sleep. So this is the sort of thing. Or in the vital is saying, I want today ice cream. And the mind says, no, you are a diabetic, so you can't have ice cream. Quarrel between vital and mind. Constant quarreling is there. But the ego can't really coordinate much, but it coordinates to a certain extent. The real coordinator of body, mind, life is a psychic being. When the psyche comes forward, the real coordination takes place. Okay? So, the ego correlates and coordinates the diverse parts of the outer nature. What man truly is not external body, mind, life, but the inner being consisting of consciousness, soul, or spirit. Okay? The outer being of body, life, and mind is an individual construction of universal nature. Universal nature makes individual body, mind, lives. Prakriti, okay? Universal nature is Prakriti. It is universal nature that motivates, drives, and governs the outer nature, but according to each individual form or character. Okay? Man does not think, thought occurs in him. Man does not act. He is made to move like a puppet by the string puller, which is universal nature. Man is a wave in the universal ocean of matter, prana, and thought. Okay? The wave cannot govern the sea. It's the sea that governs all creatures, objects, events. The sadhaka must at some point experience this truth of the ego's shadow nature. He must realize that he is not the doer of works. But that universal nature is the executrix of all action in the world. This is what he has said in the previous one. Okay. And your body mind life is subject to the modes of nature. What are the modes of nature? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Okay. Sattva is the principle of light, understanding, subtlety, okay, comprehension, harmony. Okay. By the Rajas, Rajas is the principle of action, force, okay, movement. It allows you to move. It allows you to act. Okay. Then there is Tamas. Tamas is the principle of darkness, stability, permanence, and that also is necessary, but doesn't allow you to progress much. So these are the three. So now Srimati is asking, but what has fixed the modes of nature? Who created Sattva, Rajas, Tamas? And he is answering in the para. Okay. So, or who has originated and governs the movements of force? Who has originated? We know that the origination takes place at the supramental level. The supramental level makes the Satchidananda, it starts making it active in the physical world. If Superman is not there, there will be no manifestation. So, who has originated and governs the movements of the force? There is a consciousness or a conscient. Now, what's the difference between that? Consciousness is impersonal and a conscient is personal. It's a God, okay, who is conscious of himself as an individual also. Okay. But consciousness is the universal, impersonal force. And who is this conscient? Behind. He is behind everything, hiding. That is the Lord. He is witness, knower, enjoyer, upholder, and source of sanction for our works. Now, Surendra is giving you the gradation. Okay, there is a consciousness. But when you go to the higher levels, in this level 2 of the spiritual planes of consciousness, you start realizing that you are a witness. Okay. Then you realize slightly higher up, you realize that you are the knower. The witness is the Sakshi. They are the Sanskrit terms in the Gita. The Gita is the one that describes all these things. Witness is the Sakshi. Knower is the Jnata. You come to know. Enjoyer is the Bhokta. Upholder is the Bharta. Okay, he is upholding. He is the one that allows your body, mind, life to act. If the soul is not there, then the body, mind, life will not exist. Mind you, there is a difference between soul and psychic being. There are human beings who have, everything has got a soul. Even a stone has got a soul. But they may not have a psychic being. Mother has given some instances of people here in our institution, okay, in our ashram, that there is no psychic being yet developed fully. Okay, there have been one or two cases. Okay, there is a consciousness or a conscience behind. There is a Lord, witness, knower, enjoyer, upholder, and the source of sanction of our works. Source of sanction, Anumanta. Okay, and finally you become the Lord. He has actually given the Lord first, but the Lord is the last, Ishvara. You are the master of existence and of yourself. Okay, so this is it. Now, this consciousness is soul or Purusha. You can use the word soul in a very general way because at the highest level, it is the full consciousness, it is the Ishvara. And at the lowest level, it is the psychic being or the soul, which is completely forgotten its nature at the lowest level. Okay, it's in ignorance. Now, Srimati is giving the relation between the two and how they interact with each other. Purusha and Prakriti, or consciousness and force. Okay, so Prakriti shapes the action in us. Whatever we are doing is done by Prakriti. It's like the puppet and the puppet mover. Okay, the puppet mover. Okay, we are the puppets, and it is puppet mover is Prakriti. But behind that, there is the one who has allowed this play to take place. Okay, so it is he who has financed the the puppeteer, and he is also allowed him a stage and all. So that's the support. So that's the Purusha. Prakriti shapes the action in us. Purusha in her or behind her. Now that's interesting. Purusha in her is a psychic being, or behind her is talking of the self. Okay. So, witnesses, again we have the witnesses is the Sakshi, or he assents. That's the Anumanta. He agrees to whatever Prakriti is doing. Now note this interestingly, you don't get the idea that the psychic being is absolutely perfect from the beginning. It is not. It is essentially divine, but when it comes down, it has plunged itself into darkness. And it is agreeing to whatever Prakriti is doing, including all the what you call vices. Okay, it is agreeing to it, essentially, Anumanta. Then it bears. Okay, bearing is the Bharta. It supports, bears and upholds it. Okay, so it is very clear. Prakriti is doing the action and you are supporting. Do what you want. Okay, it's like a husband and wife. The wife wants to cook something for particular dinner, and Purusha says, "Okay, fine, do it as you want." Okay. Much later, it's the Purusha who starts dictating terms at the highest level. But at the lower level, Purusha is agreeing very condescendingly and very passively to whatever the wife wants to do. Okay, it's like that. Prakriti forms the thought in our minds. He could have said, our thoughts are all, we think we are thinking, but no, it is Prakriti which is doing that. But he's using very interesting words. He's saying, forms the thought, because there's a universal thought, and that universal thought, when it comes to the mind, it has become a specific thought, a very particular thought. And that's why I'm using the word Prakriti forms the thought in our mind. Sometimes this formation is not very clear. Na? When you are a little confused, the formation of the thought is not clear. Okay. The more clear-minded, more intelligent you are, that depends on your nature, then the formation is strong. Note that that's very clear. You can become very clear-minded. But when it is formed well, you are also introducing a certain amount of rigidity. That's the reason why intellectual people sometimes cannot get out of their mind very easily. Okay. So that's what happens. Everything has got a negative side and a positive side. Clear-mindedness is very good, but you should be plastic also. You should be able to accept things which are not very logical. Okay. Prakriti forms the thought in our minds. Purusha in her or behind her knows the thought and the truth in it. Now note that. It is saying on the one hand that Purusha is agreeing to whatever Prakriti is doing, but it knows the thought behind it. So this raises a very interesting question. Suppose Prakriti is sinning, okay? He's telling a lie, okay? Or telling let us take a more simple one, okay? It's doing something wrong, okay? So, but the Purusha knows the truth in all that you think is wrong also, because the right and wrong are related. And the wrong is at the lower end and the right is at the higher end. Okay, so it knows the thought. For instance, killing. Okay, what would be the truth of killing? The action is wrong, but there's force. Force is the truth. So force can go from any length. So in everything that we think is wrong, there's a truth in it. So that's why the Purusha knows the truth in everything. Okay, Prakriti determines the result of the action. Okay, your success rate or whatever. Purusha in her or behind her enjoys and suffers the consequence. Note the word also suffers. In the beginning, there is suffering. Your soul is only identifying itself with the body, mind, life and suffering. Okay, it enjoys or suffers. Enjoyment and suffering always go together in the physical world. The dualities always are there together. Okay, in the physical world. Prakriti forms mind and body, labors over them. Because when you are a baby, you are only a 7-pound baby. But when you are an adult, you can reach 100 kilos even if necessary. So there's a laboring over it, okay? So there's a building up, develops them, develops the mind and the vital also. Purusha upholds the formation and evolution and sanctions each step of her works. But a time comes when this sanction need not be given, okay? That happens at the spiritual level. In the beginning, you are just watching. But then you realize that you want to change your body, mind, life also, and you want to get rid of your bad habits, then you stop the sanction. Okay. But at the level 1, when you are at level 1, your soul is not fully conscious of itself. You are agreeing to everything that you do. You are the Anumanta. Okay. Purusha upholds the body, elaborates and develops it. Purusha upholds the formation. Sorry. So Purusha upholds the formation and evolution and sanctions every step of her works. Prakriti applies the will force which works in things and men. Now note interestingly, will force is not there only in men, it is there also in things. The other day we were having a discussion in the Life Divine class, we remember that there is even a will force in the atom. Okay, that's a freedom element. The consciousness is there in the atom and it can act independently as though it is conscious of what it is doing. Okay, so there is a will force even in things. Okay, Purusha sets that will force to work by his vision of that which should be done. Okay? And that should be done. It even includes everything in the physical world also. That which should be done, because even if you are making a mistake, it should be done. Why? Because you will learn. It's all a process of learning. So even that when you make a mistake or when you are doing something wrong, you should be learning and you will be learning. The body, mind, life does not learn maybe, but the soul will definitely learn. It may take a long time to learn, but it will learn. Okay. So this Purusha is not the surface ego, but a silent self, the source of power, an originator and receiver of knowledge behind the ego. So the Purusha is the one that is there conscious in you. Our mental I, which the ego, is only a false reflection of this self. So you can say that the ego is a shadow of the self. You can say that in a very general way. Okay? It's only a false reflection of this self, this power, this knowledge. This Purusha or supporting consciousness. Okay? Now he is giving you a description of what the Purusha is. It's a supporting consciousness, the Bharata. Is not the, where is it gone? This Purusha is not the surface ego, but a silent self, a source of power, an originator and receiver of knowledge behind the ego. Our mental I is only a false reflection of this self, this power, this knowledge. This Purusha or supporting consciousness is therefore the cause, recipient and support of all nature's works. But he is not himself the doer. Okay? Prakriti, nature force in front, and Shakti, consciousness force, soul force behind her. Okay? For these two are the inner and outer faces of the universal mother. The universal mother is the divine Shakti. Account for all that is done in the universe. The universal mother, Prakriti Shakti, is the one and only worker. So, to understand this relationship, you can also use the image of in a company, okay, the chief executive officer or the manager, okay, is the one sitting on top and deciding the policy of the company, okay. But the work is in the factory, on the factory floor, the work is being done by the worker. It's not the manager who is doing the work. And there's a gradation between them. The manager tells the assistant manager and his supervisors what to do. So exactly in the same way, and the supervisors tell the worker at the factory level to do run the machine and do what has to be done for that day. So it's exactly like that. Prakriti is the one that is working at the lower level, but Purusha is the one that is telling what you are doing, I sanction. Okay. So this is the, but actually the sanction is at the lower level. But when you go up, it is the Purusha itself which lays down the policy. Okay. And says this is what we are going to do. Today we are going to sometimes I give very interesting examples. Okay, so suppose you are in an Amul factory. Okay, Amul making milk products and cheese. So today we are going to make cheese. Okay, that's a decision from top, and all the way down to the lowest level, they have to obey that law. After 1 month, they will say no. Today we are not going to make cheese. We are going to make something else. Okay, we'll make dahi. They market now, masti dahi, they market. So they change the policy. So you have the power, at the highest level, you have the power to lay down the policy. Okay, at the lower level, it is just being executed. This is what he said. Now, with that, again, I will read out the summary of what he is saying in this para that we read today just now. Okay. Yes, man is not free when in ignorance, he is driven by the forces of nature. And what are the forces of nature? Sattva, Rajas, Tas. But, just one second. Yeah, okay. He is driven by the forces of nature, Sattva, Rajas, Tas. But who has given nature these three modes? Is there again and another entity who has created nature and her mechanical workings? Yes, there is a conscious being, the Lord, who is also the witness, is a Sakshi, he is a knower, the Jnata, he is the enjoyer, the Bhokta, he is also the upholder, he is the Bharta, he is also the sanction giver, the Anumanta. We may call him, by the way, all these are all grades. As you keep going upwards, you realize that first you are the Anumanta, you are the witness first, then you are the Anumanta, then you become the Bharta, then you become the enjoyer, Bhokta, finally you become Ishvara. Okay. As you rise in consciousness up to the overmind level. Okay, so this is the relation between Purusha and Prakriti. So just 1 second. Yeah. Now, then one may call him Lord, Soul, Purusha. Prakriti does the works in the cosmos. Purusha behind her witnesses, assents, bears, and upholds. Prakriti shapes thoughts in our mind. Okay? Nature, universal nature. Purusha in and behind her is knower of thoughts and their truths. Prakriti gives the result of action and work. Purusha behind enjoys and suffers the consequences. Prakriti gives form to mind, life, body, shapes them, develops them. Purusha upholds and sanctions each step of the development through many lines. Prakriti has will force to make things work in objects, creatures, and men. Okay? Purusha gives us vision to direct that will force to the intended work. This Purusha is not the ego, which operates only at level 1 in the ignorance. Purusha is the silent self at level 2, the source of power and also the initiator and receiver of knowledge. The mental I is the ego. It's a shadow, a distorted reflection of the true self. Purusha is cause, recipient, and support for all Prakriti's actions. Purusha does not work. He is static, silent. Prakriti has a double status. In the cosmos, level 1, she is nature force, apparently unconscious and mechanical. But in the upper hemisphere, level 2 and 3, she is the universal mother, Parashakti. These two aspects of Prakriti are responsible for all action in the cosmos. The universal mother is the only worker. Consciousness does not work. Okay? It only guides the working. So this is what he said in the panel. 8:30, we have got 10 minutes. We can read the next one. Purusha Prakriti, consciousness force, soul supporting nature. So any one of you who has got the text can read. Archana Di, if you are possible, otherwise Jasmine can read.
I can read.
Okay, go ahead. Purusha Prakriti.
Purusha Prakriti, consciousness force, soul supporting nature. For the two, even in their separation, are one and inseparable, are at once a universal and a transcendent power. But there is something in the individual too, which is not the mental ego, something that is one in essence with the greater reality. It is a pure reflection or portion of the one Purusha. It is the soul person or the embodied being, the individual self, Jivatman. It is the self that seems to limit its powers and knowledge so as to support an individual play of transcendent and universal nature. In deepest reality, the infinitely one is also infinitely multiple. We are not only a reflection or portion of that, but we are that, our spiritual individuality, unlike our ego, does not prelude our universality and transcendence. But at present, the soul or self in us, intent on individualization in nature, allows itself to be confused with the idea of the ego. It has to get rid of this ignorance. It has to know itself as a reflection or portion or being of the supreme and universal self, and solely a center of its consciousness in the world action. But this Jiva Purusha too is not the doer of works any more than the ego or the supporting consciousness of the witness and knower. Again and always, it is the transcendent and universal Shakti who is the sole doer. But behind her is the one supreme who manifests through her as the ideal power, Purusha Prakriti, Ishvara Shakti. The supreme becomes dynamic as the Shakti and is by her the sole originator and master of works in the universe.
Then a footnote to that, you read that. Quite a big footnote. We'll discuss that in detail, but you can read the footnote. You have the footnote?
Yes,
ma'am?
I have it. I have it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ishvara Shakti is not quite the same as Purusha Prakriti. For Purusha and Prakriti are separate powers. But Ishvara and Shakti contain each other. Ishvara is Purusha who contains Prakriti and rules by the power of Shakti within him. Shakti is Prakriti ensouled by Purusha and acts by the will of the Ishvara, which is her own will and whose presence in her movement she carries always with her. The Purusha Prakriti realization is of the first utility or to the seeker on the way of works. For it is the separation of the conscient being and the energy and subjection of the being in the mechanism of the energy that are the efficient cause of our ignorance and imperfection. By this realization, the being can liberate himself from the mechanical action of the nature and become free and arrive at first spiritual control over the nature. Ishvara Shakti stands behind the relations of Purusha Prakriti and its ignorant action and turns it to an evolutionary purpose. The Ishvara Shakti realization can bring participation in a higher dynamism and a divine working and a total unity and harmony of the being in a spiritual nature.
This footnote itself is such a large one. Normally, footnotes are not at all this big because it's a pretty, this has to be expressed. So this discussion of Ishvara Shakti and Purusha Prakriti, we will take up next time in detail. But I can also refer you back to the Life Divine class of Brahman, Purusha, Ishvara, Maya, Prakriti, Shakti. Okay, there he has described very fully. So today I will not do the para, but I'll just discuss a little bit of the footnote itself. Okay, so Purusha and Prakriti, consciousness and force. These are the two things. Remember that the highest reality is Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Normally they don't mention Shakti because at the highest level Shakti is not apparent. Okay, it becomes apparent only at the lower level. So, but it is Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda. Now, at the highest level, all these four are only one. They are not separately one. Okay, they are all absolutely one. It's a substance which is conscious of itself and which has got the power to mold itself into anything, and it also enjoys what it is doing. So this is they are not four different living in one room. No, they are all absolutely same thing. Okay, you can't. Therefore, that is the Ishvara Shakti. But now when it wants to manifest, the Ishvara Shakti wants to manifest. Okay, it is subject to diminution and distortion and also multiplicity. The principle of the one becoming the many comes into play. So that which was one, Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda, starts becoming separate. At the overmind level, the separation starts. And at the lowest level of matter, the separation is absolutely complete. Substance is one, matter, Sat becomes matter, Chit becomes the Chit Shakti becomes a life force, and the Ananda becomes a psychic being. Okay, at the lower level, all separate. They become completely separate. So this is the Ishvara Shakti is together. That's why we have in our Indian iconography, the Ardhanarishvara figure represents exactly Ishvara and Shakti together. Okay, half man, half woman. Okay, they are absolutely equal to each other. So I'm using very interesting language. Prakriti contains Purusha, and Purusha also is contained in Prakriti. They are always together. In Life Divine, in Savitri, he has got a very interesting line. Purusha and Prakriti, they are exchanging glances at each level and playing with each other. Okay, so Ishvara and Shakti, Purusha, Prakriti. Okay, they are the might and the light in things. That's what Purusha and Prakriti are. So as they keep coming down, they become Purusha and Prakriti. Ishvara Shakti becomes Purusha and Prakriti. And at the lowest level, they become absolutely separated. Prakriti becomes the body-mind life, and Purusha becomes a psychic being who is sleeping. Okay, he has to awake. So through many lives, it slowly awakes and becomes it. It knows itself. Okay, so this is the truth of what he said. We'll discuss the paragraph in detail. Today Sumti is not there, so I will make a note on the chat. Okay, so that we will redo this paragraph. Do that. So it's 8:40. Au revoir, everybody.
Merci beaucoup.